You might be wondering, how did I end up dressed like this? Figured I'd slap a post-apocalyptic outfit together with what I had, and at the time I didn't realize I was looking like a homeless black metal cyclist. Anyway. You think you've got what it takes to survive in an irradiated wasteland after the apocalypse, filled with raiders? Yeah, of course you do. You probably also have enough main character syndrome to think you could survive more than 3 weeks on canned beans and fried cockroaches without losing your mind. You can't even handle the mundane, everyday grind in the 21st century where everybody's depressed. For good reason. Seriously though, I think fighting would be the least of your concerns in a world where all creature comforts have died and you have to scramble to find shelter that's not so irradiated as to give you thyroid cancer in 24 hours or isn't overrun by squatters already. Find a bed that you can sleep in for more than one night without getting herpes. Nuclear herpes. Now, of course, violent confrontations are bound to happen in the post-apocalypse. Just think about the levels of aggression that people display even in the office nowadays. So when you have to fight over aforementioned shelter and water and food and medical supplies, what will be a good post-apocalyptic weapon? Not your tactical mall ninja wall hanger, I'm gonna tell you that right away. In fact, why would you want a melee weapon anyway? Yeah, it doesn't take bullets. Okay, ammo is rare. Depends on where you are. I was gonna say, in the US it wouldn't be that rare. No, actually, it would go the way of the toilet paper in 2020, where everybody immediately panic buys and hoards ammo. So essentially you would just have to find their stashes. Well, if you go by the in-game logic, ammo isn't really that terribly rare. It also doesn't do a whole lot, where you have to pop like 10 9mm rounds into someone to even start to see them getting hurt. Never mind, I totally forgot that the anemic thing in Fallout 3 was actually 10mm, which in real life is quite a powerful semi-auto cartridge, more comparable to 357 Magnum. Oh well. Essentially, the situation would be a little bit like the current job market, where in order to get a resource that you need, money, you have to provide an asset, experience, and in order to get that asset, you need the asset, because they won't hire you unless you have experience, and then to gain experience, you need to... So the asset is a firearm and ammo. Once you have that, it's going to be much easier to get more ammo, because, you have to take it from somebody else who has it. So rushing them with a machete is most likely going to end up in you losing all your assets and not needing the resource anymore. But once you got the caps, not bottle caps, you can pop some caps on a fool to take his stuff and replenish your stock. Of course, there are plenty of weapons that could potentially be used that are easily available, like baseball bats and machetes and knives. A knife is pretty much the default because you're gonna need one anyway as a survivor or scavenger or whatever. You need various tools, and a knife is pretty high on that list of needs. So that's always available as a close quarters weapon. And something like this, yeah, it's easy to find. Only problem is it serves only one purpose: a weapon. That's it. Maybe you can breach with this, break some glass windows to get inside somewhere, things like that. But for the most part, this is one purpose. An axe, on the other hand, can be used for breaching, chopping wood, using the pole to drive in nails as an improvised hammer, etc. So in my opinion, the post-apocalyptic weapon that makes the most sense is not a weapon, but a tool that can also be used as a weapon, because you have limited carrying space. Let's face it, if you run into some dork in a blue jumpsuit who can stop time to take careful aim at you, you really think you're going to be able to rush in with a wrench or a sword before you've been shot in the left testicle 3 times at 95% accuracy? Probably not. In my mind, the only thing that makes sense when considering melee and ranged weapons in the apocalypse is both. Just put a damn bayonet on it, or just tape or otherwise fix a blade to the end of the barrel under it. So now you can take aim and pop them. If you run out of ammo or they get too close, you can jab them. Now you might be thinking, hang on, didn't you just claim that it needs to be a tool and a weapon? How's this a tool? Well, it's not. This is the one exception. When you're facing, potentially, firearms, even if there aren't that many around and ammo is limited and all that, just the fact that you can run into enemies with firearms at all means you gotta have one. You can point out that melee weapons don't need ammo all you want. You can bring up the 21-foot rule. Yes, there are situations where you might be rushed by someone with a knife or some other melee weapon before you're able to draw your firearm, aim, and shoot. But we're talking post-apocalypse here. We're talking a situation where this is not concealed carry, like everybody has their weapons on them as easily accessible as possible. In fact, quite often, when exploring ruins or whatever, you probably have the rifle at the ready. In a post-apocalyptic world where everybody's vigilant and aware of danger and their attention span hasn't been ruined by smartphones and TikTok, am I sounding like a boomer yet? It would be a lot harder to catch them with their pants down, figuratively. And even then, if you have a melee weapon attached to it already, it's much easier. Also, if you were facing potential attackers armed with nothing but melee weapons and you're out of ammo, they don't know that. If we think back to the old Mad Max movies, I think it was Mad Max 2, where Max ends up in a situation where he has no ammo for a shotgun at all, but he can still hold someone up and threaten him because the other guy doesn't know it.
I'm dishonest.
The risk of getting shot can be quite a powerful deterrent. And as I said, even if you're out of ammo and they don't buy your bluff or whatever, this way you still have a melee weapon. Even without a blade, I mean, firearms are pretty hefty, particularly rifles and shotguns. You know, you can strike with the buttstock, you can thrust either with a bayonet or some kind of blade, or even if you just jab them with the barrels, just getting the barrels shoved in your face violently would not be very pleasant. And you can hit with it too. You know, just hit with the barrels. Yeah, there is a chance you might damage the firearm, depending on what it is. The double barrel shotgun like this, not so much. They're quite robust. And there are plenty of models that you could do a lot with, like an AK-47. You could probably beat the crap out of a moose without any malfunction. Especially in Fallout, where it's been a hot minute since the apocalypse. You can bet that people are making firearms and ammo in some kind of improvised way. You can make black powder. It's not going to be as good as smokeless powder. It's going to, foul up the firearms much more, not as reliable, etc., etc. But it's an option, and muzzle loaders would probably be pretty common. They also have laser muskets, however those work. I've seen plenty of videos of homemade stuff that actually goes off without exploding in someone's face, so there's plenty of potential for that. There are even ways to convert. There's an adapter that you can insert into your breech-loading shotgun to enable muzzle loading, which is kind of wild. The downside of that was you still need primers to set that off, which that would be part of the problem. Primers would actually be the most difficult part to make yourself, in my estimation. There are ways to do it improvised, but those are very labor intensive and not terribly reliable. But even if you just have some kind of barrel with a touch hole that you put like a burning stick to, or a match, that's how the first firearms started to begin with. And those were good melee weapons too. I would even argue they were probably better melee weapons than firearms because they weren't reliable, not very accurate, etc. But they were hefty clubs. Basically, my main point is guns are like Pandora's box. There is no putting the genie back into the bottle or whatever other saying you want to apply. Once guns are involved, that's pretty much it. They define the standard, the baseline, and everybody will want to get them even if the alternative isn't great. Just think of the Liberator dropped in World War II to the Resistance. It was garbage. Like, everybody agrees the thing was terrible. Really, the idea was just you use it once, hopefully, to get a better gun. And really the only reason why melee characters work in Fallout and similar games is because you're a bullet sponge. You can take fire while rushing in. That doesn't happen in the real world, needless to say. You can't just tank 3 gunshots to the body. If you have body armor, okay, it's still going to be an unpleasant experience. But you can't actually get gunshot wounds as such and just go on your merry way, eat some cabbage. No, that's a different game. Inject some chemicals and keep going. So, in short, melee weapons in Fallout and other post-apocalyptic scenarios are overrated. It's cool to have the option I definitely want that option in those games, but not the most realistic thing. So, nerdy rant over, I suppose. I hope you found this entertaining. Thanks for watching, and take care, folks.